This whole time I had my equalizer off. Oh, see you, everyone. I was over here talking to myself, and I just looked over and noticed that my equalizer was off. I had to cut that thing on. Oh, see you, everyone. Late night. We're gonna do our thing tonight. We're gonna get into something real deep, pretty heavy. Hope you all are doing well. You know, this is strictly for educational purposes. You know, I'm doing my part with informing the people the best way that I can. Let me make sure that we good though. Y'all can hear me, right? We good to go? Give me something in the chat, like a 1 or something. Give me an indicator to let me know that we loud and clear. If you are a member of the channel, you do have the emoji that says loud and clear. We good? All right. Excellent, excellent. Excellent. How y'all doing? Now, brother Derek Coleman in the building. Hey, brother brother Levante in the building. What's going on, brother? How you? How y'all doing? Niji Warrior, I see you. Excellent. All right, so yeah, a little late night one. We should be good with that. DP, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate that. Billy in the building. What's up, y'all? Boston. What's up, Boston? Cleveland, Ohio. Gainesville, Georgia. Rolando, what up? Dallas, Texas. Osceola, Arkansas. Baltimore, what up? Cali in the building, Chi-Town in the building, Montreal, Canada in the building, Bonneville, VA in the building, Minnesota in the building. Hey, matter of fact, I might as well go Orlando, Florida in the building. I gotta sound like, you know, we right there with it. Oklahoma City in the building, New York in the building, Charlotte, North Carolina in the building, Memphis 10 in the building. What's up, y'all? Houston, H-Town in the building. Detroit, Michigan in the building. California in the building. Let me see if I got that. California love. I tried. That was probably off key. But anyway, man, look. Hope y'all enjoying yourselves. Hope y'all had a great day, great week ahead. Don't be laughing at me. Hold on, let me switch this stuff up.
OCO, freethinkers. You're now tuned into the realest historian on the planet.
This brother, he is raising some serious questions.
He's here to make you think.
What I'm trying to do is get our people to understand that we have been lied to all the way around about our history. Can you name any other group of people, no matter their skin complexion, that are being labeled primarily as the name of two continents? Not two countries, two continents. That is called a misnomer. which is the act of applying a wrong name to some person or thing.
The best teacher you wished you had in school. Have your pens and paper handy and get ready to take notes.
I want y'all to check out somebody named Dane Calloway.
Dane Calloway?
Look into Dane Calloway. He has a lot of information about how this whole shit was told in reverse. Okay? Where they say, oh, we came from Africa over here. No, a lot of us was already here.
And information that was put together by a man by the name of Dane Calloway, who is also questioning the slave trade. And he's done some remarkable videos on the history of the slave trade in the United States. And he's gone back down the food chain and gone back down the line, and he's realized that a lot of the so-called African Americans in the United States are not African at all. They're actually Native Americans, because the slave trade did not happen the way we were told that it happened.
It's Dane Calloway.
Go and watch this man's channel, man. This dude is phenomenal.
I'm not saying African American because they're not African American. They're the Aboriginals, because they were the true Native Americans.
Set it on fire.
They're the copper colored race. Look up Dane Calloway and watch his fucking shows. That man, Dane Calloway on YouTube, oh my God. He is fucking beyond brilliant. The research he does, whoo, he goes way deep into this shit.
Relax and take notes.
It's Dane Calloway on I'm Just Here to Make You Think Radio.
Now, I'm gonna let y'all know we got a new one. We'll see. But turn up though. Yeah. Turn it up. Hey. Look, my wife and I, so far we put out 3 books and they 5 stars, cause we educating the tribe up. 100 years after 100 years, they lied to us, but we wised up. The first book got them haters shook, cause it's up on my people, take a drive up. Memory lane, down memory lane, remember everything, watch it line up. And the second book, we exposed it all, had them gatekeepers going, how but? Predictable, they was fictional. All I heard getting that lies piled up. In the third book, we was riled up, like a car's engine with his mouths up. They lied that said that we came from Africa, when that's where they came from round, bro. Hey, finding out all on your own is what I highly recommend and suggest. And if you looking for answers and content by me, I highly recommend you the best, which is my website at the link you see just across the screen. Don't let it miss you, I make it simple. I double down on that black and white. It's too official. Hey. Yeah, man. All right, so the topic. Oh, my mic way over there. Hold on. Let me bring this closer. So the topic of discussion is something I've been wanting to get into. I have touched on it in a lot of my videos previously in multiple different ways. This particular one, I want to get into it so it could refresh your memory as to the reason why, a lot of the things that was brought up when it came to these gatekeepers throughout my documentaries. My wife and I has been exposing their agenda for quite some time. These people, there's a set group of people and they look like you or not, and they're working for people of pale skin that are in high top hat places, elite places. A lot of people call them many different things. They are gatekeepers, but a lot of people may call them boule, because that's one of them. That's one of the secret organizations, so-called secret organizations, but that's one of the groups, Sigma Pi Phi, that have done a lot against our people. But they were working with those whites in high places to combat us from, how can I explain it? Like more so challenging the narrative and uplifting ourselves in more ways than you would imagine. Like what I mean by uplifting ourselves is like starting our own nations, for example. These people were set in place, literally, to stop that from happening. And these people that are the gatekeepers that are ahead of those gatekeepers that look like you and I, also implemented some, a lot of manipulation inside of the school systems. If you remember one of my previous videos, my wife and I actually went over the Afro-American studies, and that came from the gatekeepers. They were being taught this particular curriculum first. For some odd reason, they'll go pull some Germans from Germany, for example, because they were teaching their people a certain way of indoctrination, and they brought them over here and held them up in high regard and slapped a label on them. Said that they were a part of a particular society that will only uplift a particular group of people, no matter their skin complexion. But in this sense, back in that past, it was only one set skin complexion. 3,000 degrees, thank you for becoming a member, or thank you for being a member for 39 months. It's major. OCO. I also showed you how these people gave us the story of the transatlantic slave trade. Literally told our people a lie, straight up in school. And this is the reason why many of the adults are out there right now believing that we came from Africa. And the majority of those stories started up, or rumors rather, started up in the early 1900s. And I remember challenging in my earlier years here on YouTube, I remember challenging everyone to go look at your individual's history, your individual family's history by record, to see actually what was recorded, what took place with your family members. Okay? Because guaranteed it's not going to match up with what you were being told in school. It's not going to match up with that. These are totally different concepts. Remember, I gave you the term conceptualism because that's what they utilized, and they utilized conceptual arts in order to manipulate the people's mindsets into believing that this is something that happened within our history. These were complete strangers giving us our history. Complete strangers giving us our history. And of course our people fell for it because they were children and they were told to respect the elders, respect the adults, don't question everything, hold all questions that you may have until the end of the lesson, but really it's until you forget to ask that question. They don't want you to think critically at all. They don't want you to think for yourself. They gave you your history and said, stick with it, nigga. This is exactly where you came from. This is exactly how you were raised. And it was always a group of people above you. You wouldn't believe that a lot of these gatekeepers know the truth. Hear me out. Hear me out. To the point where this is the reason why they attack people like me. Because they don't want the truth to come out. They don't want our people to be informed. They still want to control the narrative. The Boule, for example, are people that look like you and I, set to do the duty of those that are ahead of them by way of their pyramid scheme and organizations affiliated with it. They have to do what they are told, and that is to infiltrate, disorganize, manipulate, lie, and betray their own people. And look, and you know, it's real bad to the point where I'm talking about it's a lot of these gatekeepers online right now. People are following their every lead. And the only person that came out and said that he was leading his people to a burning house is dead right now. But you wouldn't catch any other gatekeeper admitting to their guilt until they are on their deathbed. or close to it. And this gets deep. This is, I'm just warming up the conversation because my brother, my cousin, let me say it correctly, is out there right now expressing his take on a lot of things that he went through. And me and this gentleman that I'm about to play his video, we already had conversations, and our conversations are a lot deeper than what he put out there in these interviews. He went deep, but he went a lot deeper. Okay. Because you would think that he would have some type of power to say no. And he does. But as many of you out there that think that he sold himself out, and he didn't, because if he did, I wouldn't be able to talk to him. I wouldn't be able to reach out to him. I wouldn't be able to relate to him. I would be able to point out him selling his people out. I will be able to pinpoint what organization he's affiliated with. It's real easy. It's just that I take time to find this out. You don't. And now he out there right now. He's always been vulnerable, but now he's making it to the point where he said, fuck it. If they gonna do something, do it. Because what he's standing for is what I stand for, which means that we need to do something for our people right now. We know what the problem is, but let's stop allowing these people to be our problem when we could do everything that we need to do for ourselves on our own. Let me play Cuz real quick.
Yo, what's cracking? You know what it is. It's your homeboy Ice Cube. And some of you may not have realized that I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either. And what I realized with the club is what makes them so mad is when you don't want to be a part of their fucking club.
Said Fred, thank you, brother.
What club am I talking about? I'm talking about the club of gatekeepers that we all got to deal with.
Thank you, Miss Morris. Thank you.
Who they are, and they definitely know who they are. A lot of people would be like, "What? Who? Come on, man, stop playing." So, ever since I put out the contract with Black America, you know they've been fucking with me. Here and there, this and that. But it's cool, you know. I expect that. You know, I've been working with, on the big three for a long time. And you know how they've been fucking with me with that. I done made it, plain, simple, and clear what they've been doing. The NBA been fucking with us. Now, a lot of people might say, like, well, but Cube, you want to work with the NBA. Really, I don't give a fuck about working with the NBA. What I want them to do, when I say work
stop
with
fucking
us,
with him,
is to stop working against us.
You know what I'm saying?
Stop doing that bullshit behind the scenes that we know you're doing.
Just because they hating.
Mainstream media, they ain't fucking with us. And that's cool. We can do it ourselves, you know what I'm saying? We still on the rise without these motherfuckers, so.
Let's go.
We don't need them, you don't need them.
It's up.
So, what am I gonna do to deal with these motherfucking gatekeepers? Well, what I'm gonna do is go on a Fuck the Gatekeepers podcast tour.
It's go time, Slim.
And I'm gonna go talk to everybody. everybody, you know, and get a chance to get my message out to the people. Be able to let people hear from me, you know, and you know, you might agree, you might not, but the important thing is, you know, for me to go on these platforms, say what I feel about what I think. And, you know, some people may get pissed off because I'm going to talk to everybody. I'm not playing. And it's gonna be a crazy summer. It's gonna be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate y'all. Always support the big three. Hopefully I'm doing stuff that you guys dig. You know, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for people that's bored as fuck in the summer with summer sports and want something cool like the big three. So here we are. Appreciate you. Much love, much respect from your homeboy Ice Cube. Remember that.
Now, it gets deeper because what he said he was going to do, he did. Okay? What he said he was going to do, went on a tour to handle these gatekeepers. It's not about exposing them like individually, but it is about exposing some agendas that people have no idea exist. I'm not going to play all of them, but there's this one particular one. And I'm going to skip to the part that I'm talking about. I'm gonna just let this play.
Being there as guardrails to make sure.
Oh, wait. This whole part.
50 years ago.
Yeah, and it's just done to really keep us bickering and, you know, chasing these words.
Okay, so
and not really getting
don't cut them off
of the issues, which are most of the time very common if we really go down to the root of it.
Could not agree more.
Yeah.
But you said it's being done to divide us. Okay, by who? Who's doing it?
Well, who benefits and profits off our bickering and our division? You know,
Who?
It's like follow the money. Now, I don't know their names, Bill, but if you follow the money,
he don't know their names well.
Start to see, okay, you know, this is an industry. Okay, let's take rap music.
Let's take it.
Same people who own the labels own the prisons.
Hold up. Listen, he said something very important. The same people that own the labels. Oh, let me move this out the way. Hold on 1 second, y'all. I gotta move this out the way. All right, bet. The same people that own the labels own the prisons. Now, some of you may not know that or not putting it together as if it's not happening right now. Now, look, what I'm about to say should not be taken out of context. I want you to listen to what I have to say first before you give an opinion and try to take sides, because this is not about taking sides. I'm only here to speak the truth. Now, what he said was something very important, because what could we recall that most recently happened that got a couple of these rappers put in prison? And I'm going to bring this up to you all because I want you to understand that there is a gatekeeper, and it's unfortunate because I like this guy as a rapper. You know what I'm saying? I liked a lot of his songs. You know what I'm saying? A few things I liked of his lyrics, but he sold his people out, and I'm talking about Jay-Z. And the reason why I am is because he's a part of that agenda, leaking everybody. Okay, remember how he tried to come out there with Meek Mill to try to make it seem like he helping Meek Mill get out of jail, right? Okay, but why he put Tory Lanez in it? Listen. Tory Lanez, the situation with Tory Lanez and Meg Thee Stallion, and this is the part that I was talking about. As far as y'all go take sides, I'm not saying that I'm taking a side. If hold on, listen. If he did that to Meg, he definitely should be in jail. But the problem is that that was never proven. It went off of somebody that's closely associated with Jay-Z. That lady, what's her name? The attorney is the same attorney for Rock Nation, and Jay-Z is the owner of Rock Nation. Now, he sent that boy to jail. I'm talking about they didn't. I'm just trying to understand, where was the evidence shown that said that he actually did something? Because even Meg came out and said, and hear me out, she came out and said she don't know who shot. One of the witnesses said that he saw a girl shooting a weapon. He saw firing. He saw the fire coming from her hand as if she was shooting a weapon. Nobody didn't see him standing outside of the passenger door shooting. That was nobody's testimony. Yeah, Danielle Perez is her name. Or whatever. Perez. Now, what I'm saying is me personally, me looking at it from an investigation standpoint, an investigation got held up in court and people were paid off. I'm going to tell you why. Remember the video where his father, Tory Lanez's father, came out and said that the eyewitness was pulled with the attorney of Rock Nation on that Saturday and could have been paid off because that person changed their mind the day of the trial, in which they were going to use that person as their defense witness. And then that person flipped the script. I said, uh-oh, this thing blew up. And it's all because he didn't want to sign with Rock Nation. I also saw a video of, before any of this happened, I also saw a video, or what was it, after or right before? I believe it was right after this situation happened between Tory Lanez and Meg Thee Stallion. He was mentioning how Rock Nation was trying to sign him, and he denied it. But okay, the point of me bringing all of this up here is the fact that they are going to use not only just the people that you may think is cool for some odd reason as far as their talents are concerned, because apparently that could get in the way of certain people that you may think may not do anything harmful to our people. You will put their talents ahead of their agenda. You would say, oh no, with that person, a great comedian, he would never sell our people out. That is the incorrect way of looking at this thing. It's a lot of our people that look like you and I, regular, can act like you and I, regular, on a regular beat. They will be selling our people out. And they get cash money from doing this. This is why. And it's not just a boule. For another example, right? Another example. Notice how, hold on, should I say, okay, hold on, let me see how I could explain this. Notice how, okay, when Cube goes on, let me just call this a rant for right now, because he's making it a statement that he's against the gatekeepers, because the gatekeepers are against him, not trying to let him do what he do, just like how they are with me. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. But if you about truth and you about speaking the truth and you not down with them, they're going to try different things to get you to give up so you can be down with them. When all of that has been exhausted, they will say, okay, fine. This includes, hold on, before we get to the exhaustion part, this also includes assassination of character in more ways than one, especially when it comes to social media nowadays. It's a lot worse. If you don't raise the white flag, they are going to continue and continue and continue to try to recruit you because they see that you are of a certain pedigree. Listen, they see that you are a certain pedigree. Notice I'm utilizing that terminology that they want to have inside of their organizations because everybody else is of that same pedigree. If you gonna beat, I'm gonna just break it down. If you could beat the nigga up and keep the Negro in check, the white folks that's against you is all for that. They gonna pick you up and sign you up to their team. Notice how I said beat the nigga up and keep the Negro in check. Two different people. Who am I talking about? They put the niggas in jail. They put the Negroes on TV. You understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? And again, they look like you and I, and they right in front of you. They could, I'm talking about, they can, I told you they can have YouTube channels, and they do. And they do. All of a sudden, you see these people spring up out of nowhere when there's always a problem that's dealing with the black community. Oh, we need this. Oh, we need that. That's how you can tell that these people are associated with some type of gatekeeping, because that's the only time where you see them come up in the public and be in the forefront. Okay? Like I'm talking about, they're now considered a prominent individual temporarily, a prominent Negro temporarily, just to set a standard or to correct an agenda or to control the narrative. That's right, the blind leading the blind. They will lead you to a burning house. I've been calling these fools out since I got here. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Since the Creator blessed me with people that want to watch and listen and learn, I have been stating that it's your own people that sold you out, even more so than white people. They did more harm to you than white people. I know they're not gonna listen to that. They're not gonna like that right there. I'm talking about people watching ain't gonna like that here. No, but what about slavery, Dane? These people did more harm to our people than white people. I know that for a fact because I am constantly doing research on these niggas, and they sell us out every 5 seconds here and do the unthinkable and keep our people on the ground purposely. And y'all let these fools fly because you put their talents in front of their agenda. Oh no, he's so good at what he do. She's so good at what she do that you will get on your knees and kiss the ring. Oh, it's late night, so I'm gonna talk. I know them kids sleep. For those people in the back, can you hear me? It's your own people that's selling your ass out. All right. There's another thing I want to play. And you gonna learn. I don't care. You gonna learn. Shout out to the Chicago's very own Steve Coakley. Because Steve Coakley, real recognized real, okay? Hold on. And what I mean by that is that I'm a real authentic researcher, and so is he. He did his investigation into these people that's selling us out, and you gonna hear what he got to say, because I'm gonna play it. He is the reason why I picked up so many books on these motherfuckers to learn who they are, and they are still conducting these agendas to this day, prolonging the success of, remember how our people say we gotta unify, we gotta unite. These niggas are in the way. Why you think they call gatekeepers? They at the gate waiting for you so they can redirect you. And it starts at school. But Steve Coakley has been one of my favorites of all time. It's not somebody that I look up to or nothing like that, but it's one of the, or idolize, it's one of those people that has my all-time respect. Because number one, at that time, he was pushing the so-called Afrocentric agenda until he exposed that, but that's another conversation for a different time. But let's get on these gatekeepers, because see, what you do, a real researcher don't stop researching, just because it fits some type of bias agenda that may live inside of your mindset. No. A researcher continues on, because researching is forever. It's everlasting, 24/7. And that's how I could tell the difference between me and a lot of other people that's online. That's how I could tell the difference between me and my wife and a lot of other people that's online. There's a lot of people out there copycatting. That's number one, because they are afraid or can't do the same work. I'm going to play this brother, and he deserves the utmost respect, even though it could be some things mentioned that I disagree with and that you may disagree with. But the overall, once again, the overall point still remains. So right here on Dane Calloway channel, Steve Coakley, get the utmost respect. If I see anything in that chat, I need them snipers to knock them up out of here and let me see it so I can ban them permanently and they can't return. You disrespect this brother, you're out of here. Once again, I know he was off the Afrocentric movement at one point, especially at this time, but later on he exposed that too. See, and then look, they got rid of him too. May he rest well. That's true. What, 2012? May this brother rest well. So again, round of applause for you and I. A round of applause for those of you that are coming in right now, checking us out, that's been watching ever since we started. And those of you that are clicking the like, share, the like button and the share button. And Steve Coakley and Dane Calloway. Let's get into it.
Now, it's interesting that I mentioned the black press just for an example. I want to show you something. just as deviation, the attack on the real community has been contained by the little opportunity we have to hear about it from our own press. You know, I was thinking about it. When we did the story about the Boule, when the first story of the Boule came out, which is that one, which appeared in the LA Times. Uh-oh, did I hit you? You still in? When that first story came out, that was July 18th, 1990, which we looked at right here. This is the first story about Sigma Pi Phi. That meant to us that the LA Times already knew about the Boule.
Hold up.
We didn't.
Okay, now at that time, keep this in mind. Now at that time, when he did the story on the Boule and the LA Times posted it, he said that meant that the LA Times knew about it, and they didn't. Keep in mind, they're just the middle entity to those that are at the top that are of pale skin. And it's only a set group. Malcolm X used to call them the Big Six. And the only reason why he did that is because he knew they existed. He just didn't know who they are, what they were. Okay, he knew it was in existence. He knew it was something holding us back, and he knew these people existed. But he called them the Big Six for that reason. Shout out to Malcolm X. He didn't know. Oh, but we know now.
I already knew. And that was important because the Boule, as I'm going to show you, was primarily responsible for attacking Marcus Garvey. But what protected their attack was that the whites refused to write about the attack. See, they like to play up black on black crime.
Yeah.
But not white-inspired black-on-black leadership servitude dialogue. See, you see what I'm saying? To do the black-on-black thing, but not under the certain things. Certain things are off of discussion because that's a plan or a plot, and not an incident. It's a series of things. So we know the LA Times knew about the story.
Precedents.
And then when I got to Washington in November, this story appeared in November 4th of 91. We found that story in the Washington Post, where obviously they knew about the Boule. They were talking about Wilder getting money for his campaign from the Guardsmen. We need to have a discussion about the Guardsmen. When I was on the board of the NAACP in Chicago, they had a chairman called Chairman of the Club set. There were 40 or 50 black men and women's clubs. The Links.
That's the women. That's the women.
Watch them Links. Don't sleep the Links. They like the woman Boule. Don't sleep it. We're going to have a new piece coming out on the Links. The Four Horsemen, the Guardsmen, the Snakesmen. They got all kind of stuff going. You better find out about these clubs because outside of small little press releases in the black press, you never hear what they do.
And by the way, remember the book that he's holding. Remember, I told y'all years ago to get this same book. It's called Bridges and Boundaries, African Americans and American Jews. The book that he's holding right now is called Bridges and Boundaries, African Americans and American Jews. So this is what he was referencing. This is what I was referencing in certain documentaries of mine, so you can understand the relationship and the disbandment and the further negotiations that happen between certain Jews and so-called African Americans, and who sold who out. And they did not care. Everything was in the book and many other books that I'll get into in a sec.
And they make up the consensus behind the scenes about the containment. You see, the whites don't seek to stifle black leadership, they just seek to contain it.
That's right.
So that how do you allow a person to speak but say nothing?
Woo!
Becomes a strategy. This is, you become proficient in this. So we know, says that the Boule and Greek letter societies represent the infrastructure of black America, the fraternal dynamic that permeates the black community. Now the white man wrote this.
Hold up. Oh, hold up. That's so calm down. That's so important.
that it represents the infrastructure. Remember the Boule called...
All right, hold on. Right there.
Becomes a strategy. This is, you become proficient in this. So we know, says that the Boule and Greek letter societies represent the infrastructure.
Boule and Greek letter fraternity societies represent
of Black America.
The infrastructure of Black America.
The fraternal dynamic that permeates the Black community. Now the white man that wrote this, that it represents the infrastructure. Remember, the Boule calls itself the inner circle of our race.
A circle within a circle.
Which means that when Du Bois introduces the concept of the talented tenth, what it really was, talented tenth only. Now, if you don't understand that, what only means, it means exclusively just us. And it means that the guarantee is that in spite of or in deference to 11 on down. This is a policy that they cannot break.
They can't break those policies.
So we know that they knew about it. So it was no news to them.
That's the sacred knowledge.
And then we start finding these around the country. This is the black newspaper in Washington, D.C., the Washington Afro-American, with a 1992 story dated
Don't forget,
January 11th.
Washington Afro-American. Remember, I told you that these same people created Afro-American studies. I swear, Steve Coakley would be jumping for joy with the stuff that I put out so far.
The Washington Afro-American, with a 1992 story dated January 11th, 1992, talking about Epsilon Boule Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity Annual Dinner Dance. And it runs down all this and it says, continued success to all the members of the area Boule, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. They had a meeting together, all three of them. D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. In 2 hours, you can go from Richmond, Virginia, through D.C., down there up to Baltimore, Maryland. So you got 3 states you can quickly get to. And this list says there was approximately 65 members at the D.C. Boule. Some of them are our host, Samuel Massey, Grand, Rep. Carcer, us or something, Hardy Franklin, Carl Anderson, blah, blah, blank, 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 Wesley Brown, George Weaver, blah, 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 blah. It says here that Vernon Jordan, it was Attorney Jordan and his lovely wife, Ann, who is white, who invited Mayor Sharon Pratt Kelly and her husband.
I met Sharon Pratt Kelly.
The newlyweds had just returned from...
Sharon Pratt Kelly was also the mayor of D.C. I met her. And to me, I thought she was white. Now, you know, I'm from D.C. Those of you that are D.C., Maryland, Virginia, remember Sharon Pratt Kelly? What was her nationality? Okay, but look how she tied all up in it, though.
The honeymoon, it was a real pleasure to see them so soon after the surprise nuptials. We wish them much happiness. But the point of it is that the kiss-off to the Boule is that of positiveness. So the question becomes, since they had never wrote a critical story of the Boule, then the supposition is that the Boule's history, what they have amounted to, what they are, is worth emulation and success as opposed to analysis and condemnation. A value judgment has been made that we weren't a part of, and the conclusion is they have hidden their whereabouts from us on an honest level and confined our dialogue to things that didn't include them when they looked at the power dynamic. When in fact, in the power dynamic, they are the primary consulted ones from the white race.
Consulted ones.
Now, this is of course, Jet Magazine, which in August is announcing the new head of the Boule being put in. Now see, you're just looking at it, you don't even see Boule, which means you gotta read into stuff, everything, every little picture, flip, flop, everything. You gotta have some way of grabbing your attention. 41st, show you right, baby. The 41st Biennial Grand Boule of Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity convened in the Blush. What we know about every time they meet, it's always flush. It's always flush. Western Crown Center, hotel in Kansas City, Missouri. The immediate past grandsire Archon Benjamin Mayer of Oakland passed the gavel to the new grandsire Archon Hugh D. Perkins of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. African Americans working together for progress was the theme. Well, how can we have progress when we haven't met? Was the theme.
He said, how can we have progress when we haven't met?
The Boulay. Roy Roberts, manufacturing manager of General Motors Corporation, was the dynamic keynote speaker. An evening dinner lecture on the history of the Kansas City Jazz, an enjoyable picnic where more than 784 Archons, that's 19, 7, 8, and 4, no arbitrary number, Archons and their families feasted on the delectable famous Gage's and Sons barbecue. Were among the Boulay highlights. That was the highlight. Accolades were heaped upon the General Chairman, Elmer Jackson Jr., and his state of Boulay of Kansas City Archons and Archhouses, which is the wives.
And the reason why they didn't care to post this in the Jet magazine is because the Jet magazine was a part of them. They were a part of that clique. Okay?
Now that means, of course, not only is John Johnson of Boulay, but that he's known about it. He can report to us more about it. But in fact, again, the dialogue is about platitude. Here's another one. Found this one in New York Amsterdam News. The Amsterdam News is a brother who came out who was being attacked by the New York Post. Everybody really loved the brother for coming out and counterattacking, for being attacked in the New York Post. I forget the brother's name, Tate, no, not Tate, the brother, the head of the Amsterdam News, he was on Nightline one night. Tatum, there we go, Tatum, that's it. Brother Tatum, and this is his newspaper in New York, and he also was the first black press to do the ADL story in New York, which is very amiable. And here is in his paper, giving honor at the invitation of the 3 metropolitan and suburban chapters of the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, a very enjoyable animal Christmas party was held at the Holiday Inn Crown Plaza.
By the way, for those of you that don't know, Sigma Pi Phi is the Boulay. Sigma Pi Phi is Boulay. That is that Greek fraternity organization.
Well, that's interesting. They got 2 crowns. They mentioned the crown in Kansas City, and the crown is the Crown family who owns General Dynamics. Big-time Jewish people who have attacked me personally. Sigma Pi Phi, which founded in 1904, first 1904 Greek lettered fraternity of African Americans in this country.
The first one.
The host chapters, it lists them. It lists some of the people who were there, judges, the Mayor Dinkins and all of that. Say annual party draws, distinguished guests. Of course, there's no hint of aversion in the story, but it only means that even though the brother at the Amsterdam was good in the fight, it did not in fact expose what it could have. Now, we were here just the other night, and we talked about this. This was our subject matter. We talked about that. Army Black Spy Network dates back to 1917.
Woo, listen.
And of course, in that story, we said that on May 3rd, 1917, that Secretary of War Newton D. Baker ordered Von de Man. So we got Newton Baker orders Von de Man, head of the Military Intelligence Division. It also said to set up the Army Spy Network against blacks. It also said again that his assistant to Newton Baker, Baker's special assistant was Emmett Scott. And that Emmett Scott was a person that we wanted to look further at. And what we learned by looking at Emmett Scott was that he was a Boulay member. In fact, when this story broke, and even though the black press was redoing the story without a theme, they couldn't go do what I did. I went and got my Boulay list in my Boulay book. And you see number 20 right there. Emmett Scott, This is listing who the Boule members were in Washington, D.C. in the early 1900s.
Remind me to give y'all the name of this book. This is a totally different book, but I could give this to y'all. Remind me.
I'm sorry, in front of somebody. And sister will tell you how excited I got when they dropped that Army spy story, and I then put my theme over it, and lo and behold, bingo, pops out the Boule man. Now the question becomes, are the other people who appear in the story patterned similarly after him? Remember, there were other people in the story, which was our Moulton, Booker T's successor at Tuskegee, came aboard, as did C.B. Ronan of Nashville, who sent Loving, the assistant to Von Demond, a list of potential black informants and troublemakers.
Sent them a list of potential. Look, y'all. And look, and they be the judge as to who these people are. And they're judging it off of their pedigree. I'm trying to tell you. When they attack me, they attack him. They attack Cube the same way. Except for it's more modernized now because we're online. I'm going to talk about that in a second.
A list of potential black informants and troublemakers.
Black informants and troublemakers.
That's Boule action. It then says that Robert Church of Memphis, Tennessee, who's the first black millionaire in America. Remember, the first black millionaire in America was a spy. He was one of the wealthiest men of the race, has put me in touch with one prominent colored man in each of the largest southern cities. So he needed a network of prominent colored men to be available to provide to him the potential of identifying other troublemakers. So,
of troublemakers. Getting the that's who they are. These are the gatekeepers, y'all. I'm gonna stop cutting it off.
When I was in the mayor's office in Chicago, I, unbeknownst to myself, was being flushed out by competing powers around the mayor who just happened to have been the head of the Boule. I didn't know it then. I didn't have the damn grid to fit over what I...
Let me explain. He was working up under the Chicago mayor. He didn't know what was going on at that time when he was working up under the Chicago mayor as the assistant. Oh no, Chi-Town, tell me, y'all. I forgot what he was. He was up in there as far as the mayor's campaign. I'm trying to remember his official title. But it was definitely working to his excellence as far as research is concerned, but he did investigative work behind the scenes, grabbing certain informations for, you know, particular demographics having to do with certain groups of people. Well, actually, they were justly divided for certain reasons. His name is Steve Coakley. His name is Steve Coakley for that mayor of Chicago. Man, I'm trying to remember that his title. It'll come to me in a second. But that's what he's referring to right here.
I didn't have the damn grid to fit over what I was seeing. It was just any old attack to me. Just another old attack from a little faggot ex-government official. Took it like any other attack.
See, back then that word was, I hope I don't get in trouble for that.
I know that he had been working against me and had served white mayors for many years and had done more than inform for them. Which meant that the Boule, to me, has been counted on by other people. And this story, going back into the Army's Black Spy Network, now you walk in, two more people. You walk in Joel Spingard and W.B. Du Bois. Just walk them right into this picture here.
Ooh, look, y'all. If y'all been on my channel, you know. And see, that's why I always give props to Steve Coakley for this reason. He ain't give a fuck.
And Du Bois takes his autobiography and dedicates it to Joel Spingard. Look in the first page. We were talking about it last night. But then Joel Spingard gets revealed to have been a spy for military intelligence. Which means that Du Bois must have been.
Hold up.
Like the others were.
Hold up. What'd I say? Let me calm down. What'd I say? And I broke that thing down. I knew WEB was a plan here. Knew it, but called it. And I exposed the hell out of him. I'm telling you, Steve Coakley will be proud of me with the work I did. He would be. No matter who may dislike him or who may dislike me, I know for a fact that this brother right here, we would have been on teams. Big time. Big time. We would have had a fucking ball. You hear me?
A spy.
He was a spy. Just like Booker T. Washington.
This is a picture of Emmett Scott. Just for the record, we can put it on the video.
I told y'all.
That's a picture of
1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma. They were the spies to come down there to infiltrate and send that word back to a group of people. And I told you who they were. To say, oh, them niggas prospering over there. Oh, that's okay. We're going to send in the militia and shut it down within 24 hours. 1921. This is the reason why they ain't trying to put that story up. Because it happened more than once. You know, when they dropped bombs on Tulsa? It happened more than once in more than one area. That's why. And it was your own people that did it. I told you. See, he went, I'm telling you, if he see what I got.
As right here in Los Angeles in 1941 at the Boule meeting at Griffin Park. 30 years into his Boule activity, Emmett Scott becomes the 11th Grandsire Archon from 1941 to 1946, and most prominently leading them through the war years. Now this is the Boule history book, keys us right up to the Memphis Commercial Appeal story. The selection of Emmett Scott as Grandsire Archon was one of the singular events of Sigma Pi Phi's history, which had significance for its war relationships during these years.
Which has significance of war relationships during these years.
Excuse me, thank you.
No live remote telecast.
No. Come on, see?
You know I'm on you, But I probably came back. That's the brother that was shooting the pictures the other night. He came back. We had a little talk. We feel much better. We'll be all right. Okay, we'll be all right. Says here, now listen to this now. Remember, this guy is a spy against black people. But instead of being demoted for being a spy against black people, he was made the king of the inner circle of our race. It says, in the years, Archon Scott had served during World War I in the years 1917 to 1919 as Special Assistant to Secretary of War Newton Baker. He was also
as Special Assistant to the Secretary of War in 1917. The significance of this fool's title says a lot. That was also another secret society that I showed you all during my video of the Statue of Liberty, right? Franco-American Union, ring a bell here? And they got tied up with the who? The Secretary of War? And they did what? They was trying to get rid of our people then so they can make room for more incoming foreigners, and they did it Motel 6 style and put up a Statue of Liberty to let them know where to go. They got everything ready for you. The pillowcase, the covers, the bed, and everything. We'll leave the light on for you so you can know where to go. And he got up and he was in charge of getting rid of our people, getting them out of the way simultaneously. Look at how deep this gets.
Author of a volume, The American Negro in the World War, which was a phenomenon, seeing that was 40 years before Rosa Parks. To get a nigga to go fight, couldn't even pee in a whitewash room, that's heavy.
And what he don't know, what he didn't know, and maybe he did, I didn't see anything of that. I got a lot of his work. But what he didn't know is at that time, Rosa Parks is also a plant. Rosa Parks was also a plant. Okay? Because think about it. Why was she chosen to be the story that should be put out there in the open when somebody actually did something very similar the year before. But for some odd reason, that person didn't fit a particular description or pedigree to be promoted inside of the, the publications, newspapers, etc., as a reason why things should be desegregated. Claudette Coleman, huh? Okay, Levante. See there? Okay. Uh-oh. Ooh, Levante. Woo. Rosa Parks was a plant.
Set it on fire.
This entire time. And so was Martin Luther King.
That. So the black press could have told us in reviewing history like it does, and black press does give you a lot of Negro history. Watch it carefully. It gives you a lot of Negro history. Now we know they've given us the short eye history. Yeah. They could have went deeper and explained better the real theme that held our history together. Our history, and Brother Marcus said something that was really an honor to me, and not in a disrespect to anyone. He said, Steve, there have been a lot of people looking at this Garvey thing, but I never heard this theme come back of proving Garvey being attacked from an organized group of white men, black men, whose loyalty was to white men. In other words, we've almost gotten it so tight that it could be criminal charges.
All right.
See, I mean, it's the evidence has weighed in so strong now that it wasn't just a cat. See, everybody always says, well, what did the Boule do wrong? I mean, that's a logical question. Well, what are you holding against it? And
what we holding against
that's,
it?
Huh? About genocide. That's assistance, what we call co-assistance to genocide. That's right, that's right. And we be up on that.
It's go time, Slim.
And of course, we remember we talked about the other night, and of course you can't see that at all. Now you won't be able to see it. But we talked about how they utilized the Klan in the spy network. That they could always count on the Klan of keeping track on a nigger. So the Army used the Boule to spot out the troublemakers, but used the Klan to spot the niggas. Now what's the difference? You needed two different groups because the Klan didn't have enough money to spot out these niggas. Because Klan couldn't go where these niggas had the privilege of being at, which was so close to the white man that the Klan couldn't get that close. So the Klan had to supervise po niggas. That's about the way it broke down.
That's exactly, look, it lined up. It lined right up, separated them in groups. This is the reason why they made sure that they promoted that black term for a particular reason. I broke that down in a couple of videos, but I got a newer one coming. My wife and I are cooking up right now that we're going to expose that term black, because they utilize that same method in order for you to start calling each other black for a particular reason. And it's a code word, just like Negro and nigga. Same way, and it's working the same way. And it be the gatekeepers out there promoting this to you to keep that narrative flowing, holding you up.
And so that they had to sort it out about who got to do what. Now, we don't want to forget this. Now, this is how one man built an empire. And I'm going to blow that little chart up there for you. Let me see what I got to do here. I think I'm going to blow it up. Don't look like it's going to get no better. But what that chart tells you is how many chapters Marcus Garvey had in how many places. Cuba, 52 branches.
Now,
number of branches.
He promoted Garvey.
Distribution of UNIA branches. Cuba, 52.
I know that Garvey was a traitor also.
Trinidad,
he did.
30. Costa
This is
Rica,
why I
21.
disagree with
Canada,
him, man.
15.
I see where you
Jamaica,
went.
11. Honduras,
But
8.
I went
South
further.
Africa, 8. British Guyana, 7. Colombia, 6.
So I'm not going to hold
Dominican
this against
Republic,
him.
5. Guatemala, 5. Nicaragua, 5. Barbados, 4. British Honduras, 4. Mexico, 4. Sierra Leone, 3. England, 3. Gold Coast, 2. Liberia too, Bahamas too. We have yet in the history, now this don't even include Harlem, Chicago, this ain't even concluding in the continent of so-called America. We have yet to come back that strong ever. That's right. And we ain't never really been told how deep brother was in. That's right. They have not told us how close Marcus Garvey got to the people we were after. They have
now. See, it's a very important that he said that, because I wanted to see how far Marcus Garvey got. And then I did my research even further and found out that no, he was actually working up under the crown directly. They got him right before he created the United Negro Coalition. What was that? The UNIC? Hold on, what improvement, right? I think that's what I'm missing. But they got him right before he created that. And this is the reason why UNIA, right? And this is the reason why he was able to get certain places that were outside of the United States. He had hope. But notice the lower numbers that he were reading off. One of them was London, and they only had 2 divisions there. The lower the number, the stronger those divisions are. The reason why I'm saying that is because that was the foundation. And this is the part that Steve didn't get a chance to check out, but I'm sure he would have had he went further, if you know, but he's not here with us any longer, you know what I'm saying? But I just know if he was here, he would have found that out.
Never told us. Just like when we went through the Malcolm thing, we saw they never told us that Malcolm really did attack the Rockefellers.
Right.
And that Malcolm knew of the Boule, but he called them Big Six.
Right.
Big Six.
Right.
Which was the best he could conceptualize because he didn't know the whole thing.
Because he didn't know. He didn't know the whole thing. I just got finished saying that earlier.
For a cohesive element of black men who are being used to compromise all other black people.
Right.
All right? So we keep that in context. Now let's flip over here. I want to share with you something that about the Jewish involvement. Now, part of the reason that black leadership, so-called, is such a butter knife is that at a specific moment, white people showed up and made a scientific decision that we have to get in the front of that nigger parade because that will be our leverage with the other whites. Now, let me go. Let's put the year 1915 on the top of my forehead.
Go before that.
Pre-1915, there is no record of Jewish philanthropy in the black community.
Now,
1915.
Hold on. That's a big deal because a lot, and this is the reason why I said a lot of this stuff started at the top of the 1900s, especially with them telling you the lies that I'm exposing. Like, for example, that we all came from Africa. Because prior to that, where did you get that from? Who told you this? Who told you this? And then you never found out who created Afro-American studies. All of these videos are on my channel, just in case y'all need to go back. But that's very important. And that was even before the Racial Integrity Act of 1924. And that was before the riot that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. That time period is so critical. And I believe it was a little bit more than half of my channel is dedicated to that time period because of what happened. But I'm so glad that it linked right back up to what he's saying.
In the black community, 1915. Now you will remember that the Urban League and NAACP was 1908, 1909, and all the rest of that. You remember that? All right, wait, I just want to make sure it's wet. So, but these were predominantly being assisted by Anglos. And that the Anglos were in fact the ones that they all sought to be with, the Jewish philanthropists as well as the talented Tim.
Because they're the same.
In fact, it mentions that there emerged an alliance. This is where you got to go back to the black. This will come out in the black and Jews thing. We'll go into this a little deeper. But that this so-called alliance that we've had started with Jewish wealthy and college-educated blacks. That was the alliance. Now that's significant, just to rehash it. What is significant about Jewish wealthy setting up an alliance with the best of the blacks which were only college-educated blacks. In other words, the so-called alliance never started equally because there were no black wealthy to align with Jewish wealthy to make it a mutual alliance.
Now,
never from the beginning.
Now, that's a mistake, okay? And the reason why I'm not saying at that time that he knew, but I know now that there was a lot of wealthy people that got involved with the Jews because I started pointing them out. When I started, and he didn't know this neither, I'm sure he didn't, but for example, to go further back, Frederick Douglass was wealthy. Just as an example, Frederick Douglass was wealthy. How was Frederick Douglass able to save each and every branch of the Freedmen's Bureau from crashing in 1875? Where did he get his money from? And see, this is what a lot of our people were making a mistake at. They didn't realize that we had the money. We were the biggest capitalists at this time. All the way up into the 1900s. This is the reason why they said it was a Great Depression, because it was what was being depressed were them, not us. We were good. And we were involved in the Senate. And okay, so we basically had say-so with this government. Then they flipped the script. Remember the Birth of a Nation? Not the one where they talking about Nat Turner. I'm talking about the original Birth of a Nation. Okay, when the KKK got together and actually made a documentary about themselves, and the first time it was played at the White House to the president. This is what they were creating. They were creating nativism. Remember, I went over that part dealing with the Native American Party. If you could go back on that video, I was referring to the Native American Party. That was the first time that you ever heard of the term Native American. That's where they got that from. The Native Americans, or AKA the know-nothings, according to what the newspapers were saying. They would say they know nothing because anytime they asked them a question about their organization, they would say, I know nothing. I know nothing. I know nothing. And remember, I showed y'all that Trump did the same thing. Okay, he answered just like that. I know nothing about this. I know nothing about that. But there's a particular group of people that are set inside of that secret organization for that reason. And they were all foreigners. I told you who they were. I broke it all the way down. And I shared my sources. And these people are working against you, just like the Protestants. And I'm not trying to go on a religious note, but they also are part of a secret society. Just like certain people don't know that Christianity is a part of a society. Let's be real here. It's denominations of that society right now. Like you think they off the hook? Like because they practice a religious belief? No. They are all in bed together. And they are against you this entire time. And look, I'm gonna show you how it started. Well, actually, it started with religion first, then it immediately went to the schools. And I know he's gonna say something about it.
So that the blacks who were gathered up to be the alliance partners to the Jewish wealthy were in fact college-educated blacks, or as they say here, a talented 10th blacks. Which meant that all the blacks had power.
He's not saying temp, he's saying 10th. 10th. Okay? The number 10th.
Was the concept of
Let me go back a little bit.
A talented 10th blacks. Which meant that all the blacks had for power was the concept of a group of blacks who would get authority over the other 90%. That was Du Bois's concept of a leadership.
Ooh, that deserves, yes, go back.
College-educated blacks, or as they say here, a talented 10th blacks. Which meant that all the blacks had for power was the concept of a group of blacks who would get authority over the other 90%.
What's that, y'all? Hold up. What is that? Talented 10, that's 10%, and the rest of the 90%, that 10% is in charge of. What is that? What is that? Y'all should be familiar with what this is. I'm looking at the chat. There's a terminology for it that we didn't even know, right? And we're looking at it. I mean, we're utilizing it right now. Paying tithes? Nuh-uh. Not that. Privileged? Not quite. Not quite. No, okay, I'm referring to a people. I'm referring to a people, a group of people. It's 10% sitting back, controlling the 90%. And trying to get them to do what the 10% say. This is the reason why I use the term 13%. I throw it back at them. This is not only a play on words, it's a play on numbers. Because they speak in code. Code meaning numbers literally. This is the reason why I throw the number 13 back in their face. What they want the 10% to do with the 90% is to make it seem like they are unifying. When the 10% is there to separate. Remember, the entire time they were there to desegregate. Right? Divide. Because once you divide the people can be conquered. Divide and conquer. That's what the 10% is there for. To control the narrative.
That was Du Bois's concept of leadership. The talented 10th. And that concept of leadership is what he offered to the white man to have the white man assist them in being that leadership. That the talented 10th was not a statement of guarantee with our people. Our people didn't conceive of the concept. It wasn't taken to us for ratification. It was a separating of the community in an organized decision.
Whew, it was the separate, look.
To have the white man assist them in being that leadership.
Listen, goddammit.
That the talented 10th was not a statement of guarantee with our people. Our people didn't conceive of the concept. It wasn't taken to us for ratification. It was a separating of the community in an organized decision by a weak element that felt itself intellectually superior. Mm-hmm. But in fact was not more relevant, more helpful.
Nope.
What was not identifiably any better than anyone else who could have been the leadership, so-called. Now, let me hook it in with you right here.
And that's how they get you. They may pretend like they're one of you. They could slip right in. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. They could slip right in, and they have been for the longest. They have been. And it doesn't have to be a person like, for example, like Jay-Z. It don't have to be that, like a billionaire. It don't have to be. It could, once again, the person could look like you and I on a normal, all the way around, overall. Like normal, regular, original. It could be the person across the street. It could be a person in the grocery store. It could be the doctor that you're going to go see. It could be the barber that you're going to go see. The stylist, hairstylist that you're going to go see. It could be the mechanic that you're going to go see. It could be you understand what I'm saying? But they got to have a particular pedigree. This is the reason why it's only 10%.
Want to bring something together right on top of this that'll make it real interesting. It says here that
Umar Johnson a clown.
Is David Levering Lewis, Parallels and Divergencies, Assimilation Strategies of Afro-American and Jewish Elites from 1910 to 1930.
I'm going to tell you why that Umar Johnson ain't with them. Because if he was with them, his school would have been put up the same year he was talking about it. He ain't with them. He's not. Because I'm telling you, the 10% are funded. Umar too much of a clown.
Is David Levering Lewis, Parallels and Divergencies, Assimilation Strategies of Afro-American and Jewish Elites from 1910 to 1930. Now, as I said, I have never been one for Negro history. But now the 1910 to 1930 period is
That's
important
why I got
to
you,
us.
Steve.
in our investigation, because the spy story has told us that something happened in 1917.
Yeah, the talented 10. That's WEB's 10
the formulation of the boule. A predominant
Levante, that's correct. I'm gonna go back. That's correct. The W.E.B. Du Bois has the book called The Talented 10. So he's quoting from that, but just letting you know that some of that information is inside of the book that he was holding up under his arm originally, called Bridges, Boundaries, African Americans and American Jews. So just in case y'all want to look this up, Levante, thank you. I appreciate that. Talented 10th is by W.E.B. Du Bois, and Bridges and Boundaries, African Americans and American Jews. It had multiple different authors. So, but just type in the name.
I've never been one for Negro history. But now the 1910s.
Now he said that he was never for one for Negro history. And I understand that, because I believe this was at a time that he was stepping away from what was being taught because of who was teaching it and who was in charge of it and who created that curriculum. And this is the reason why I'm exposing not only Afro-American history, Black history, American history. I'm exposing it all, because everything is tied to it. They had to give it to you in order for you to consent. They gave you the lie so you can consent to their invincible regime. The land is being divided by invincible lines. The people are being divided by invincible lines. Can you hear me out there? I hope you can.
1930 period is important to us in our investigation, because the spy story has told us that something happened in 1917, only 13 years after the formulation of the boule. A predominant assignment had developed, and that assignment gave the impression that maybe this was set up to be the spy system. The argument simply stated that there is a time when a small number of socially powerful and politically privileged Jews and African Americans embraced the ideology of extreme cultural assimilationism. That although this ideology was empathetically not without paradox or illogic, its ultimate consequence entailed the abandonment of identity, and that these two elites, one wealthy and primarily German Jewish, the other largely Northern and college-trained African American, reacted to threats to their hegemony from both within and from outside their ethnic universes, decided to concert many of their undertakings in the belief that group assimilation could accelerate through strategies of overt and covert assistance. Influential Jews and talented 10th African Americans feared within a short span of time they would be powerless to promote their social and political programs because of nativism. Other members of—
There you go. Because of nativism. Remember, now, I know his research at that time was limited on what nativism was, but I further explained in further detail what nativism is. You have to go back on my channel and look at that video, because that is very important. That's dealing with only foreigners and not even us. Their agenda was to, I'm talking about, not only align people to betray our people, but to get us out of the way to make room for other foreigners. That was the overall agenda.
Feared within a short span of time they would be powerless to promote their social and political programs because of nativism. Other members of their groups who were acting ignorant or less civilized.
Don't forget, the reason why he said that is because it was two separate groups. The nativists were a particular group that included the Protestants. The other groups would have been Christianity or Catholic Christianity, and they were against each other at that time, okay? Because they felt as though it was an agenda. The nativists felt as though it was an agenda to stop them from prevailing while they got here. This is the reason why the USA flag came about. Matter of fact, I have a video on that. called The Untold Truth of the USA Flag. The nativist, that was their flag, that USA flag. Originally, our ancestors had the Confederate, what they called the Confederate flags, because we had confederations before any federations were ever created or designed by remote control, by the way, because they're not even here. By remote control. Like this government, for example, U.S. Incorporated is a federation. When technically, when you're saluting to the flag, you're stating a negative affirmation as if you are a nativist when you say, how does it start? Now I'm trying to remember how it starts because I wanted to eliminate that out of my mindset. That you pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But they're only referring to their people. This is the reason why people are making the big mistake in correlating the Statue of Liberty as if it was referring to them, like slaves in America. You got to go back on that video too about the truth about the Statue of Liberty, because no, it was strictly about empowering progress, Egypt, progress. That's what it stands for. It's referring to the empowerment of other foreigners this entire time. It was never done for our benefit, ever. We did not create that Pledge of Allegiance at all. We had no ifs, ands, or buts as far as the say-so was concerned in that meeting that took place that came about, where that Pledge of Allegiance came about. You're stating a negative affirmation to some type of a flag that has nothing to do with you, to a people that don't give a crap about you this entire time.
In other words, assimilation would be messed up by someone who didn't know how to eat right and speak right. White.
It was all about them. It was all about them, and only a certain group of them, not all of them.
Racism set off among old stock Americans by uncontrolled migration from Eastern Europe and the Deep South. Many poor whites coming from Eastern Europe, many so-called poor blacks coming from up south. Triggering, north. In turn, divisive and strident cultural and political nationalisms among the unabsorbed, increasingly despised newcomers. Now, it also contained documents of different people speaking against migration, which was interesting because the Urban League and many others got in the forefront of calling for blacks to stay in the South. And that raised a lot of other adjoining questions. What the familiar details of the beginnings of American anti-Semitism do not adequately explain is why Jewish involvement with African Americans greatly intensified after 1915, taking on an urgency of a special mission. Why Jews of influence and wealth rapidly moved from racial altruism barely distinguishable from that of a neo-abolitionist and parlor socialist wasp to virtual management of African American organizations. Virtual management of.
By remote control.
What debate there was? It says available literature is silent about pre-1915 debate. What literature there was abruptly resolved by August 17th, 1915 lynching of Leo Frank of Marietta, Georgia. Frank was a Cornell University graduate whose grandfather had been a decorated Confederate officer and leading Atlanta businessmen. Leo Frank was head of head of B'nai B'rith in Atlanta. Leo Frank was head of B'nai B'rith in Atlanta. And of course, Leo Frank was the first white man in the history of America to be solely convicted on the testimony of a black man. Now that so scared the Jewish people, Because the Jewish people, Jewish philanthropists, old-line Jewish philanthropists said, we should not get caught helping the Negro, for it is not good to help America's pariah, for we too will be looked at as the pariah's assistant. And since we're trying to escape being the pariah of Europe, we won't get caught helping the Negro yet. That was the pre-1915. But when the head of the International Order of B'nai B'rith in Atlanta gets hung for raping a white woman solely on the testimony of a black man, they got scared of this shit. That scared them. That's when they ran out and formed the Anti-Defamation League. Because that's when they knew that if a black man could convict a Jewish man, white man in America, that they better get out quick and get some sort of organization to protect them. Because to them it couldn't have been anything lower. Says here, listen to this. Says that accused of the murder rape of a white female, he was the first white man in post-bellum South to be convicted on the capital offense on the testimony of an African American. The incendiary speeches of Tom Watson, the nearly demented Georgia populist leader, and the barbarianism of Marietta Mob made it clear that the victim's punishment had been determined by race and class rather than by regard for evidence. The Frank Clay's case also briefly threatened Afro-American Jewish goodwill when the Jewish-owned New York Times demanded that the Georgia authorities try the African-American janitor, the sole witness to the crime, as the guilty party.
Now that book talks about their relationship.
Meaning, hey, not only is he not guilty, but try the nigga. You know what you're supposed to do. It's a nigga against all of us. It says there were many use of distinctions. It says that the Jewish leaders preferred leaders of accommodation rather than of protest. When the Jewish people start to get involved, having been afraid by what happened, when the Jewish people start getting involved, they talk about that they start looking for blacks in the various cities that had pedigree. The word pedigree was used. There you go. Now, in the article condemning me by this guy Taylor Branch in here, in condemning me, he said Coakley lacked pedigree. Therefore, he was like a scavenger fish type of thing. Says here that during the ascendancy of Booker T. Washington, militant Afro-American spokesmen in the North had commanded little of the loyalty of the masses of their own people, nor the attention of white philanthropy, to say nothing of the heed of the politicians. The death of the great accommodator in November of 1915 opened a crisis in race leadership. In that already became apparent that the Bookerite philosophy of African American development through subordinate agriculture and trades was far more suited for the rural South. By 1917, perhaps as many as 250,000 Southern African Americans were resettled in urban North and East, and Bookerites had a few answers to socioeconomic crisis raised by the Great Migration. Consequently, many of the great industrial philanthropists turned from Tuskegee and Hampton Institutes political cadres to the urban, mostly northern men and women who had never forewarned faith in full civil and social equity, and for whom the NAACP's Du Bois, Boston's William Monroe Trotter, Washington's Francis Grimke, and Kelly Miller, and Chicago's Ida B. Wells Barnett were heroes. Those were the radically racial men and women with whom socially conservative Jewish elite would form an alliance. Many of the talented 10th were stamped in what E. Franklin Frazier called the genteel tradition of the small group of mulattoes who assimilated the morals and manners of slaveholding aristocracy. But the nucleus was free black, descended from tiny colonial populations concentrated in Boston, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia, the founding place of the Boule, and Providence, Rhode Island, gradually amalgamated by Underground Railroad fugitives, and after the Civil War by Southerners with some or all of the endowments of pedigree, professional distinction, good morals, and affordable racial mixture, that is, derived from antebellum liaisons. A few names.
See?
Fortin, Herodin, Purvis, Spyhacks, Trotter, Whipper, Downey represented the moderate fortunes from real estate, insurance, publishing, medicine, hosteling, and construction.
They also wanted you to have like a white wife also, or if you were the female, they wanted you to have a white husband. Okay, they wanted that. That was a part of the pedigree. Not only the moral standards, but they wanted your relationship a certain way also.
Most were from generations of solid middle-class incomes.
Middle-class income
was exemplified by the National Urban League leadership of the early 20s. Eugene Kinkle Jones and George Edmund Hayes, Opportunity Editor Charles S. Johnson, Chicago Urban League Director T. Arnold Hill, all of whom were sons of professional fathers, second-generation college products. Second generation. So you only had one group of college-educated men. When the boule starts off, you actually got the second generation of college-educated men. So on your second turn, the white man guarantees that crowd 1 and crowd 2, perpetual leadership. Because in here it says that if you agreed to be a part of this, you could at least have leadership for 40 years. Why they picked 40, I don't know. Interestingly enough, it makes a comment about that when the Jewish people joined philanthropy, it allowed them to do something for other whites. It says the Jewish civil rights role relieved the DuPonts, the Fords, the Mellons, the Rockefellers, and other genteel capitalists from the burden of more infrequent ceremonial contact with African American leaders and organizations, which in turn somewhat vaguely obligated those capitalists to closer ties with Jewish financiers and philanthropists.
So they got the banks.
See what it's saying? That because the Jewish people showed up and relieved the DuPonts, the Astors, the Rockefellers, the Mellons, the Fords, etc., from
Proctors
spending their time or wasting their time giving their money away to Negroes in hump and pomp ceremony, that the Jewish community came in and became that tender to the black leadership, which obligated the Carnegies, Mellons, DuPonts, and others to fraternize with Jewish philanthropy for assisting them on the Negro question. So that when they tell you, we've been a partner in the Black-Jewish Alliance, you tell them, my knowledge is that the richest of you circumvented the riches of the Anglo-whites who you sought to get with at the museum and the Art Institute and the Symphony Orchestra and the opera, of which you had not been allowed to be on yet.
African American Museum.
By giving philanthropy to the Negro who you never hung with,
Smithsonian,
you in fact tended to an obligation that the white race had to keep niggas cool. And that for that, for example, Japan and Germany want to come in on the world thing. So every time something come up, America say, well, Japan, you got to put money up for Russia. Japan, Germany, you got to put some money up for Russia. You all got to help pay what it cost us to pay the world off. We'll put you on the Security Council of the UN. We'll put you, but you got to fork up and pay over for the containment of the globe. So in other words, if you're going to Japan enjoy the benefits of a world we dominate with military strength and violence, you got to pay us for dominating it. And so for the Jewish philanthropists to be included in the Anglophiles, which was what both groups aspired, the blacks and the Jewish people aspired to be up there, they had to show that they would foot the bill. So when they go into that dialogue about, and boy, I couldn't imagine them ever showing up for a real meeting over history. But God, we could have a trial. We could try black-Jewish relations.
And look, and that's so and I took that. I just took that to heart right there, because it's so many things that we could get them for right now. There's so many things that we could get them for, and you know, it would be hilarious for us to just take them to court for just the things that they did. As far as the history is concerned, with all the evidence that I have, I've been a couple of times. I done came out and said, look, I'm looking for some lawyers and some attorneys that ain't scared, that got the balls, that's gonna actually try to do this thing for real. Like, I mean, I'm talking about Supreme Court lawsuits left and right. Left and right.
Now, listen to this. In fact, the guy Villard said, I've never appealed to them for aid to the Negro and been rebuffed. Villard was the first Anglo or white, he was the first chairman of the NAACP, of which Spingard then followed him. But Villard only stayed there until Du Bois attacked Villard and made him leave, which brought Spingard in.
Yeah.
And you must remember that, too. It's a preferred leadership. Now, says here that support of and participation in African American civil rights movement was seen after 1915 as meeting Jewish needs. When barely 10 years...
Whoa. After 1915, see? A lot of people was thinking just the civil rights was 1966. And remember I told you it was 3 of them. And I told you there was a section in there for the Indians, and there was definitely a section in there for them foreigners here. The name of this book that he's holding up is called Bridges and Boundaries, African Americans, American Jews. I'm gonna say it again. Bridges, Boundaries, African Americans, American Jews. Get this.
And participation in African American civil rights movement was seen after 1915 as meeting Jewish needs. When barely 10 years earlier, they had supported those African American forces, the Bookerites, only. It says, in the aftermath of the Frank case, upper-class Jews increasingly encouraged the new African American leadership, the talented 10th, which employed agitation and publicity as principal weapons to force the glacial pace of civil rights.
Look, hold up, Steve. Listen to what he just said, y'all. They telling you the agenda.
The talented 10th, which employed agitation and publicity as principal weapons
to
force the glacial pace of civil rights.
I'm trying to tell you.
Set it on fire.
Establishing a presence at the center of the civil rights movement with intelligence, money, and influence, elite Jews and their delegates could fight against anti-Semitism by remote control.
Woo! What'd I say?
You see, when Copley gets attacked, I'll show you all the stories. They say, where are our responsible black leaders? Meaning, where are the ones that we paid to attack in a situation like this?
That's
you
right.
know what I mean?
That's right.
And so, in other words, they're going to fight the attack on themselves by remote control.
By remote
in other
control.
Words, if LeGrand Clegg says that Jewish people have dominated the influence of Hollywood and have portrayed negative images, and then by noon, Ben Hooks condemns him, the man who he was speaking for. They didn't have to fight LeGrand's so-called anti-Semitism because by remote control, they could clocker the niggas to do it.
Send a coon in there.
That was the point. To be able to clock you a nigga to show up.
No bull.
That's why they put niggas in the forefront of all their fights.
That's right.
Every single time.
Sister was heading Planned Parenthood. And they know how to do that. Mary Wright Edelman, she's theirs too. Eleanor Holmes Norton, she's theirs too. Listen to this. This is deep. Julius Rosenwald became a trustee of the Rockefeller Foundation in 1922. This is very important because the Rosenwald Fund had always given out a lot of money to black schools. In fact, by the time Rosenwald hooks up with Rockefeller in the 20s, he had already given away $4 million to secondary and primary schools in the South. In the South. Now, what was important about Rosenwald coming on the board of the Rockefeller Foundation was that it meant that they would unify their philanthropic efforts. That was important because you couldn't have one group of whites building up the wrong set of niggas.
All by design.
So you had to have a clearinghouse so that you could check with your army man to find out who the troublemakers were, because you never give money to a troublemaker. The word in their bill is don't feed the teachers. So remember that phrase. That
true.
Hangs up in them foundations. It said right on the wall, don't feed the teachers. Yeah. And then the subline is feed the dumb and the ambitious. Now, Julius Rosenwald became a trustee of the Rockefeller Foundation in 22 after distributing more than $4 million or less out of his pocket to build schools for Southern blacks. Now remember that book. I mentioned to you the book by Carter G. Woodson and there you go, show you right. I mentioned this book here because this is the book that will show you exactly everywhere that Rosenwald put that money, everywhere the Pew Foundation put their money, everywhere the Rockefellers put their money. It's in a chapter called Educational Development. And in that chapter, it just lays out tons. It says the education of the Negro, however, has continued in the hands of whites, and the Negroes themselves being largely the objects of such efforts. This results from the fact that in the main it is a concern of the government, and Negroes are not permitted to figure conspicuously in this sphere. The philanthropists are not to be blamed for this. They are merely dealing with the situation as they found it. The public functionaries believe that it ensures to their special program to direct the mental development of the Negro along the lines which is not prejudicial to their interest.
Woo.
To develop the Negro along the lines which is not prejudicial to their interest.
Woo.
And some of them, discarding the economic principle that the consumer pays the tax, boldly assert that since they are financing the education of the Negro, they have the right to direct it as they will.
As they will. They're going to direct it.
The education of the Negro, therefore, has been largely a process of telling the Negro what someone else wants him to say or do, and watching him do it in automatic fashion.
Hey.
Has been largely a process of telling the Negro what someone else wants him to say or do, and watching him do it in automatic fashion.
Listen, this is what's been going on. Still to this day, the educational system is the exact same way. Nothing changed.
Clear as day. The Negro in our history, called the educational development.
The Negro in our history, Carter G. Woodson. The Negro in our history, Carter G. Woodson. That's the name of this book.
Page 572.
572. Page 572.
Carter G. Woodson and Charles Wesley.
And Charles Wesley.
Of course, wrote the history book of the Boule.
Charles Wesley wrote the history book of the Boule. And Carter G. Woodson worked with him to make this book, and the miseducation of the Negro and the education of the Negro that informs us that Carter G. Woodson was also there as a plant.
Carter G. Woodson wrote The Miseducation of the Negro. And the Education of the Negro. Correct. Outstandingly correct. The General Education Board. Anytime you're researching the past, you see the word General Education Board. That was the forerunner to the Rockefeller Foundation. That was his name before it became called the Rockefeller Foundation.
Yeah.
It was Rockefeller's foundation, the General Education Fund. It's just that it was just that, an education fund.
He was putting his money in it.
It says the General Education Fund, in dealing with the problem of Negro education in the South, has consistently tried to aid the various education agencies of the states in their endeavors. In 1910, the Peabody Education Fund, the Southern Education Board, enabled Virginia to employ a state grant for Negro rural schools. The following year, the General Education Board took over the support of this work and extended the offer to other southern states. Kentucky, Alabama, Arkansas responded at once, and they were closely followed by North Carolina and Tennessee. By 1914, Georgia was added. By 1919, each of the southern states had an appointed state agent for Negro rural schools as a member of the staff of the State Department of Education, paid for by the Rockefeller family.
Now, the Rockefeller got in charge just because of the money that he was funding. Now, this goes to show you that we also had our own schools and was funding it, okay? But he came in and talked, made them an offer that they couldn't refuse. They saw that money. They was like, and we running low on funds. Matter of fact, we'll run with that. And then he got control of every single school that we had originally.
So he had built him a Negro superintendent of Negro school development in every state.
In every state.
Now, if you have someone compiling a list of troublemakers, it doesn't make any difference unless you got access to controlling where a troublemaker may reside. Like at compulsory school. Where everybody's forced to go. Now, if you got this sophistication of a system going, you could in fact start steering the student. Start steering the student. Start steering the student.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Coakley, one of our good brothers. He's been doing it for quite some time. And I definitely want to give him his props because he deserved it. He deserved it. Now, it was, of course, it was more than that. But me personally, I wanted to get to the meat of everything that he was talking about, and I wanted you to see that portion. There is more. I do have more, which I want to do. Because, I mean, if you want to pick up on this tomorrow, or we can continue on right now, because there is more. And if you, that may be a little deep right there, and I don't want to overcrowd you with a bunch of information. I just want this to be able to sink in so you can understand where we coming from here and what we dealing with here. We talking about our own people that's selling us out, that's working for a set group of people that don't look like you and I. And they doing it for the money. And they doing it for the fame. And they doing it to think that they're going to be able to have wealth within their family for generations to come. But they actually get cut short. Don't forget that he said for 40 years, this is a job. This is a task. This is what they signed up for. They signed in a dotted line. Remember when people say you signing your life away? That's what they were doing in a literal sense. These people are out there and they're working against you. And they are called the gatekeepers. They are called the gatekeepers. This is what we have to combat. These people have been out here for the longest. We talking top of 1900s here, when all those foreigners got together and created their own correlations. Now, I remember telling you in one of my previous videos, I said, and let me see if I can find that really quickly, because they also allowed our people to self-determine who they are. But all of that was happening at the same time because of nativism. They wanted people to take over our spots, not only by erasing or stealing our history, they're also stealing our cultures, traditions, our way of life, our spiritual practices. They were doing this by design. And our people had no idea, because the majority of them were in school thinking they were getting the best education now that the Rockefellers was able to put their funds behind their schools. And they had a totally different agenda. During the early to mid 1800s, the offsprings of previous foreigners of European descent that migrated to North America prior to this great migrational period were threatened by the increase of even more foreigners being welcomed as citizens of America. These people were referred to as nativists, who carried a lifestyle of prejudice and bigotry, racial discrimination, racial political views, and biased religious beliefs. As more immigrants flocked to North American shores, migrating to cities and towns all across the East Coast, the nativists' beliefs turned deadly by causing riots to arise and attempts to greet the newly incoming foreigners with resistance. For example, in July of 1844, it was said that a riot took place in the city of Philadelphia. Don't forget, that's where the Boule arise, where a large group of nativists burnt down 2 Catholic churches and a Catholic school, killing 20 or so people in the process. Now, I'm sure many of you can recall some major events that occurred during that same time period, like the Indian Removal Act of 1830, for example, where President Andrew Jackson forced Indians living all throughout the East Coast of America to migrate to lands west of the Mississippi River. And then they came up with another great migration at the late 1800s, top of 1900s, and tried to move the rest of the Negroes that stayed, tried to move them north, right? It's all lining up. They were trying to get you out of the way, and they had to use your own people against you in order for that to happen. In the latter part of the year 1849, a politician by the name of Charles B. Allen created the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, which is OSSB, in the state of New York. It was a secret society formed in order to stand against the immigration of incoming foreigners of British, Irish, German, Japanese, and Chinese descent to the United States, and anybody else who practiced Catholicism as their religious choice. So you had the Protestants against the Catholics. In order to join the society, you had to be required to follow their rules. A requirement was that you had to have been a Protestant for at least 21 years. You must uncritically obey all orders and political policies established under their oath of their society. A lot of our people were ordered by the same society to betray us. And notice how I'm talking about late 1800s, because the motive was there, but it started going in motion at the top of the 1900s when they had certain people in place politically. This is why you see this picture right here and everybody sitting down at the table. You got the all-seeing eye above them. They're all looking at the all-seeing eye. They're all in this together. They're up under the same umbrella. They're up under the same web. That's why they said circle within a circle. That's what it's called. These are the gatekeepers. They are against your people. Now, don't get me wrong. They're against all people that are not their people, but they're especially against you. Goes back to what Cube was saying. If you're not a part of their club, they don't care about you. If you don't want to be a part of their club and they want you, they're going to try everything in their power to tear you down. And their money talk. And they're all in bed together, meaning whoever they got to pay to send the media probably already a part of that club or some club that's associated with that club. A big web. No, I didn't say that's God's eye. I didn't say that. I said that's their all-seeing eye. There's a reason why they utilize that on a dollar bill still, right? That's their paper money that they developed within that same time period, right? 1900s. Compulsory education, then, you know, who was that? Did the Federal Reserve, Woodrow Wilson, the Federal Reserve Act, welcomed in more Jewish bankers and their relationships in. Hey, they took it over from top to bottom, from education all the way up to political, governmental positions. They took it all over. Media, mainstream television, whatever you doing, they got their hand in it. Whatever you interested in, whatever you are interested in, they got their hand in it. Well, Dane, we can't do nothing about them. I mean, what can we do? First of all, you got to know about them so you can recognize them. And it's the reason why they try to shut people like me up, because once I inform you what their agenda was in the past, you'll realize that they have the same agenda right now and it's still in play. And if you don't play their game, It dies. If you don't play the game with them, it dies. That's why. So I wanna pick this up tomorrow. And I'm not playing. I'll be here tomorrow. I love you all. Thank you for, coming out and checking us out. I got more to share, and I'm gonna need more time. But it's late. And I know my wife need me. I appreciate that, y'all. Thank you all for showing support, hitting the like button, commenting, sharing the video. I really appreciate y'all chatting. Shout out to the moderators. Shout out to those that became new members as well. Okay, shout out to those that even donated I didn't get a chance to see. I appreciate all the love and support, you all. I'm doing this for y'all, for us, because that's what it's about. I'm that type of person. I'm not out here selling you out. That is not my agenda. Never has been. Won't ever be. Okay? Y'all take care. Wado.
I'm just here to make you think.